Hello, everyone, and welcome to the C Sharp Open Office Hours. This is for the final week in the C Sharp 101 class. Now, again, this is all about helping those out that need a little bit of help. But we're going to start things off with a discussion that was going on right before Open Office Hours started up, and I wanted Nelson to finish off the conversation he was having with Gavin, which is a little bit of rudimentary MMO discussion. So, Nelson, you were just throwing some code at the screen and using this as a quick way to get some of your thoughts across to Gavin.
Yeah, basically I was just showing an implementation of this, at least as far as what the classes will look like. So what we have here is I'm talking my VTM voice now. Gavin, so we have this player model and the player controller. And the player controller is going to have a reference to the player model, obviously. And the player model itself is going to subscribe to the events that get fired from the server. And so, for example, in this case, all this event's going to do is result in the position being updated. So the model only takes in the data directly from the server and then pulls information out of the events and puts them into their own properties. Mm-hmm. That's really what the model does. The controller has a reference to the model, but it's also going to subscribe to the events. And this isn't the best way to do it, but it is a way that will allow us to not have to worry about building a model binding system just yet, because I'm not entirely sure how that would look in the context of the MMO. Mm-hmm. So for now, the player controller is going to be notified. So this method is going to be invoked magically when the player moved event is fired. And then this code is going to be invoked after this method gets invoked. So then when this method gets invoked, the player model has already been updated, so now the player controller can immediately invoke the code on the view to update the player. So for example, the view is going to look like this. It's going to have an interface, because everything has interfaces. You'll have something like interface iPlayerView. And iPlayerView is going to have a method called move. And it's going to have a vector3 new position, or however you want to express the new position. And then one implementation of that view, or probably the only one in the context of the MMO, is going to be the actual player behavior. You're going to... So the player behavior is going to inherit from mono behavior and implement the iPlayerView, and his move method is simply going to say transform dot position equals new position. And the player controller is going to have a reference to that view, so he's going to have a private read-only iPlayerView view, which is going to be instantiated to the player behavior at some point. Probably, though, it would be passed in as a parameter to the constructor, so that with this way, the player controller is in no way bound to Unity at all. So he only gets an iPlayerView instance, and then he'll say in his handle method to go ahead and update or move to the new model's position. And then at the time you instantiate the player controller, you'll pass in an instance to the player behavior, which will be attached to a game object and all that good stuff. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a game object. It could be a variety of objects. For example, the inventory view is probably not going to be a mono behavior, but it'll have mono behaviors inside of it for handling the different UI elements.
Right.
So the view, because it's an interface, can be anything. It could be a mono behavior. It could be not a mono behavior. It could be a collection of mono behaviors. It gives you a lot of flexibility. But the flow of information is what's important. The controller is going to tell the view what to do, and then the view is going to tell the individual game objects what to do.
Okay.
So that's kind of how, again, just following this diagram where the server sends in the events to the model gets updated, then the events get sent to the controller. Of course, like I said to Jason earlier, this isn't two discrete operations. This is the same event data being sent and then just being split at the client side. So maybe if I were to represent this a little bit nicer. And there's going to be a test. Everybody who's watching this, there's going to be a test on this. and it's going to be a prerequisite for passing the course.
Look at you
So-
developing a sense of humor, Nelson. I love it.
And multisyllabic words as well.
And Don's right. The answer is 4. So as long as you can remember that, you're in good shape.
Server sends events. The events get fired to the client. The client informs the model, and then the client informs the controllers. Model updates its internal state. The controllers get notified of the update, and then take the data from the model, send it into the view, and then the views update the actual real game objects.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought that's
And the cool
what the
thing-
POs were right there up under the view.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I could erase that to make it more clear, and
Okay.
maybe move this to up here. No. There you go. Oh, come on, you stupid piece of software.
Enter to commit.
So yeah, so that would be like the flow of information from all the way from this system to Unity. And the cool thing about it is everything right here is independent of the engine, or not
Yeah.
the engine, independent of Unity itself,
Right.
which does become very useful, especially once you start working with building test clients that are just console windows for testing things that you don't want to have to spool up an entire real game engine to make that to test. But yeah, so that was just the
Yeah, kind of what was being discussed earlier, but just a quick, rough idea of what it looks like in code.
if I make that compile, I wonder what the class diagram will look like. If I could find the button that does it. Am I blind?
They're under the architecture menu according to DStew.
That's one of the options, but the architecture menu is a bit different than what I'm looking for. I'm looking for
Don't you have to go to add? And,
there we go. You can do that, but this way it does it all. It will automatically add all the classes in.
Right there in front of your face.
How do I pan? This is not tablet friendly. So yeah. So you have the player controller, which sits over here. You have the player model, which sits over here. And then you have the iPlayer view, which sits right here. And then a specific implementation of the iPlayer view, which is going to be the player behavior. So that goes right there. And then these things just go away. And that goes away as well, because I don't want to. There we go. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, again, Gavin, that was just to kind of give you an idea of what we were discussing again before open office hours. So let's go ahead and shift gears to some open office hours and a few people that I saw over on 3D Buzz that were having some difficulty grasping some of the concepts with OOP, though I sure did not expect for last week's class or this week's class earlier this week to be the ultimate answer, and you watch it and you walk away going, oh, I now understand object-oriented design. That's by no means were we looking for that. But
no, and in the post that I made on Windy Butt's thread, the thing about OOD is it really it's a very difficult. The reason it's difficult to learn, I mean, the reason it's like I said, I brought the example of arrays, and arrays aren't necessarily something that you'll instantly understand if you read about it. I'm not saying that they're a simple concept to understand, but you know when you know arrays. Like you'll feel that you understand what an array is because it's a very, like I said, not necessarily simple, but a very straightforward concept. OOP and OOD are not like that. They're it's a very organic feeling where you get an instinct as to where it's appropriate to put classes, and you'll develop those instincts the more and more you develop and maintain systems. That instinct does not come instantly, but the sooner you start throwing classes at C#, the The sooner you start trying to make something work with 2 or 3 classes together, looking at the relationships between them, how they interact, once you start doing that, that's the beginning of the process, and that's the only beginning of the process. And if you continue to do that, then you're going to get good at it, and you're going to develop those instincts. So, yeah.
Let the questions begin.
In the webinar panel.
Yes, please.
I can talk foreign.
You all right, Nelson?
I just thought of something funny.
Just found a pony picture? What?
Oh, no, I was just reminded of a pony quote.
Oh, close enough.
Applejack's sister starts speaking in French, and she's like, "Oh my God, my sister's speaking in fancy." Thought it was funny.
Both Wolfery. Feel free to ask whatever you need to ask. Okay, question panel time, Nelson.
How the miscellaneous punctuation do you get main under 25 lines while using an enum program state? Ah, good question.
You don't even need to cheat with the breaks.
So,
That's only about 50. You can put the breaks on their own lines like it should be.
I kind of like that. When I only have one statement or one expression inside of the case, I'll generally put the breaks on the same line.
It just looks nicer.
Yeah, no, it's just that because there has been a certain amount of back and forth on the forums about what counts as a line.
But yeah, you can see that Nelson's definitely under even by moving it all around.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is an option as far as getting the method line count down by delegating the responsibility of doing certain things to these certain methods. But of course, you're going to want to do stuff like you're going to want to be able to change state. So you could have each one of these methods return a new state that they're going to switch to after they're done. So state equals main menu, state equals add item, state equals display items. And then you'll also want your products. So let's go ahead and add a list of product names to be made available to each one of your individual methods. So we'll give the product names to the add item and to the display items. So then we can go ahead and add those parameters. And then in display item, what we can do is say, for each of our product in product names, console write line product. And then we can simply say return state.main.menu. And then add item would be similar. It would be product names.add console.readline. And then main menu would simply say, int choice equals int.parse console readline. And it would say something like if choice is 1, return state.add item. if choice is 2, return state dot display items. Otherwise, simply return the main menu state. So now if we were to run this program, we can go ahead and say, okay, I want to add an item. So I'll hit 1, then I'll type in product 1. So now say I want to display items, I can type in 2, and I'll get my product 1 back. I can type in 1 again, say product 2, and then now I have two products. In addition, I could also say, if choice is 3, return state dot exit. So now if we say 3, the program closes. So that's 50 to, so that's under 20 lines.
But the key thing isn't, I mean, we gave a hard target of under 25 lines, but it's more important to understand why having short methods is a good thing. Because then you will naturally end up with short methods. You shouldn't be aiming for short methods because that's elite. There's a reason for it. And once you understand the reason, you will de facto end up with short methods.
Right. So basically, that's exactly what I was thinking. When I came up with that limitation, I was thinking, well, we just introduced methods. People aren't automatically going to understand the best way to split apart methods. What's a way that will force them into a situation where they'll have to create additional methods? And that's why I came up with the line constraint to begin with.
Steve Jones just nailed it. When you use short methods, you will end up with short methods. I knew what I meant. It never comes out my mouth. I don't know.
But as you can see here, this program is, I think, a lot easier to read than if everything was in main, because now we can easily look at how the program works. We can look at main and we can say, okay, well, main's just a state machine. It's going to choose to do different things depending on the state. There's no additional code here that's cluttering up that fact. It becomes a very straightforward thing to read. And then we can look through each one of the individual state methods, and they're just concerned with doing whatever they need to do and returning a new state to switch to. So things become a lot more easier to read. So if you ask me, okay, I want to edit the main menu now. Well, instead of scrolling through millions and millions of lines of code, we can just come up here and to our method list and click on main menu. And we have instantly jumped to the piece of code responsible for performing that task, as opposed to having to sift through an entire huge monstrosity of a method to find that particular code. I thought the homework said to only have one method in main.
Bear in mind that we've got two. That was week 6's homework. Only has one method in main.
Oh, yeah.
5's homework, doesn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't talking about week 5, or I wasn't talking about week 6. See, because week 5 is going to be a similar thing. The reason I said only have one method in main is so that you are forced to create additional classes. And by main, I mean the program class.
Yeah, like only main and program.
Also, apparently we hate them. Or I hate them specifically. I mean, I don't, but... Okay, so seeing what you did made me think past the list of methods. I used refs instead of just passing the list. Was thinking C++ centric. Steve Jones, C++ allows you to pass anything by value. C# does not. List is what's called a reference type, and because it's called a reference type, or it is a reference type, it is a class, and all classes are reference types. Because of that, it is impossible in C# to pass a class by value. So by doing what I've done here, where I passed it by reference, this does the same thing than if you were to use references or pointers instead of C++. By doing this instead, by saying ref, what this does, this is a bit different. This is like a pointer, if you're familiar with C++. That means if I were to assign product names to a new value, that new value would be assigned to this product names variable, because this product name variable is being passed by reference. So this allows me to assign a new value to the variable that was invoked from it. However, this still allows me to, if I were to not use ref, it still allows me to edit the original object. Now, not everything is passed by reference, though. Structures and enumerations are passed by value. So if you were to pass an integer, that's going to be passed by value, in which case you'll need to use the ref construct, ref or out construct, in order to edit that value. Okay. BuzzCat, did I answer your question, by the way, at least as far as how to get the method line count down, or an approach that you could take to do that?
Actually, Nelson, did you see the two methods that I the two PMs that I forwarded to you? Questions about week 4 or week 5, I can't remember.
I know. When?
Yesterday or the day before?
Oh. Okay, so in that case, I did answer one of them implicitly by showing that, by demonstrating this state enumeration. That was also covered in the video itself. So if he continues to have that question, I'm speaking to Boris right now, then rewatch that video. And we did actually go about using enumeration to track state so that we could determine which state the program was in. And this is also a slightly more complex example. Well, complex, but a lot nicer looking example for how to actually use that state variable to switch on in order to determine what code should be executed on any given iteration of the loop. And then your other question, I'm pulling that up now, but 3D is being slow. Okay, and then we did have another question. That the question was, I don't know if that person is here. I guess I could look, and he does not look like he is here. Well, actually, let me check the attendance list instead, in case he's not in. No, yes, okay, so he is not here. And that was from Java. And he says, I'm having a difficult time with week 5's homework assignment. He cannot for the life of me remove a product information from the text file. I did think of opening a temp file and writing all the lines except the line the user wanted to delete. Delete the file that I was reading from and then rename the temp file to the original file name. However, I do not know how to delete or rename files. That's a good question. Let me go ahead and show the best way to approach that. It's going to be something a little bit frustrating from trying to think of a solution to this, but the simple fact is you can't really edit files. I mean, you can change text within a file using more complex stream code than we've gone over, but you cannot delete stuff from files. You can't remove something from a stream, really. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to completely delete the file and restart it and recreate it from the from scratch, essentially. So let me go ahead and I'm pulling up another Visual Studio instance here.
See, that's why I forwarded it to you. I thought that was essentially the case, but I didn't want to give someone the wrong advice. So I said, okay, I'm forwarding this to Nelson.
Remove all the gray, because I hate the gray. Okay, so what you would do is you would have like a list of strings, and we'll call these product names. Then you would have a method like save products that takes in a list of strings. Which would really just say using stream writer, and maybe we can do a little bit better than this and say file name as well. So stream writer, file name. Then we'll go ahead and just say for each var product in product names, sw write line product, and then we could have another method that static list string load products string. Hold on, I have to move my tablet because it's.
Just use your mouse.
Use my mouse to type, you mean? Well, no, I have to get the tablet out of the way of my keyboard because it's impairing my typing speed.
I thought you got the new.
Yeah, I got the new wireless thing, but that allows me to move it without knocking over everything on my desk. See, previously I could get it to where I wanted it to be with the wire, but it hung over my keyboard and it knocked over everything on my desk as I moved it.
Gotcha.
So now that the wireless thing works actually really well, by the way.
Oh, very cool.
You should get one.
Yeah, I should.
And I'm not doing any error handling right now.
No, NATO, it's an Intuos 5 that Nelson just got. Yeah, Nelson's the big boy. Yeah, it is sexy. But not as sexy as Zach's new motorcycle. Though he seems to have vanished. He never came back.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and compile this and then create a products.txt file. Fill it in with stuff, and we'll see stuff being removed. So I can say products.txt, and then I'm going to go ahead and do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now if you look at this code, what it's going to do is it's going to load all the product names that I just put in, remove the item at the third item, and then save it back. So if I run this program and reopen products.txt, you'll see 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 3 was removed. And that's how you can get deleting a file working, by simply creating and recreating the file entirely. Alrighty, so questions. So did I mean, he's not here, unfortunately.
But hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I didn't. I just brought it up because I thought there were two questions that might be other people banging their head against those as well.
Yeah, David, I think you're right about the Zach off riding until the gas tank's empty.
Okay. Was wondering what the best practice of reading a text file would be when the file doesn't exist yet, as in it would be created at the end of the program and loaded on the second run, but it can't load a non-existent file on first run. Correct. Basically, what you would do here is you could quite easily wrap this around in a try-catch. Catch a file not found exception, and simply eat it.
Yay.
Well, this isn't a bug. This is we
Feature.
We are using exception handling here for flow control, which is not something that's typically encouraged. But even if we did have code that said if file.exists, or sorry, we could have code that says if not file.exists file name, return product names. We could do this, but what if that file gets deleted between executing lines 22 and executing lines 29? So in this case, wrapping it in a try catch will be a lot more likely to not cause as many problems. Okay, so I only watched about half of Monday's class, not sure if it was shown, but is there a way to iterate through all the properties of a specific class member, such as car1.color, car2.color? Yeah, well, kind of, sort of.
Without reaching for link. Exactly what color.
Hey Barry, actually Nelson and I have talked a little bit about doing a just like a one-off resharper class, so I'm pretty sure we're going to see that sometime soon.
So we've essentially
Nelson's Corner on Resharper.
I think we did.
We did, but I would like to do one that's a little cleaner, a little more structured, and with students asking questions and being able to follow along. That was back with version, what, 5.1 or something?
Yeah, not the things that changed with 6 were mostly web development tools, though. It'll be similar, but I agree with doing a live one.
Yeah. Like I said, it was something that we've talked about. Plus, having everyone follow along and then ask questions will be really good.
Alrighty. And these squigglies are killing me. So this is how you would go about writing a specific property out from multiple objects. Basically, you do need to have a collection of those objects to do this. There's no way to loop through all of the local variables in a method. That's impossible. But if you register them, or if you think about this, if you were to register them with another component or another object that contains them, then you can simply ask that other container for all of the items that are in it by using a for each loop or a for loop or a while loop or link or whatever. So what I've done here is simply created a car class, created a list of cars, added multiple cars to that list, and then used the for each loop to loop over every item within that list. Well, was that what you were looking for? Okay, cool. It's a good practice to pass a large list of products. Seems like this list could get huge. Or was that when you just answer with the ref stuff? Good question. And the answer is it doesn't matter. And the reason it doesn't matter is that if I were to do like, well, let's say we wanted to break this apart, like print cars or something. So now we have a method called print cars that accepts in a list of cars. But here's the cool thing. Because lists are classes, which are reference types, this variable is being passed actually by reference, or specifically the object is being passed by reference. So the object that we are instantiating here on line 21 is assigned to this cars variable. But when we invoke a method and pass it in as an argument, we are passing a reference to the same object that we instantiated on line 21. There's no performance penalty of doing this. And the size of the list is irrelevant. Funny story, Cold Fusion passes arrays by value, which is... I don't get it. It's so dumb.
It's okay, Nelson. Breathe.
But see if you use a native cold fusion array, because remember cold fusion is built on Java. If you use a native cold fusion array, they're passed by value, which means if you have like 100 or 200 item array and pass it to a function, it's going to have to copy all those values in manually, or well, behind the scenes, but still. But if you instantiate a Java array, which behaves exactly like the cold fusion array, and assign it to a Java or a cold fusion variable, then it passes by reference. It's like, what were you guys thinking? I just don't. Okay, This is off topic, so no hard feelings if you don't want to get into it. Do you have to discipline yourself to learn keyboard shortcuts, or is it something that comes naturally? It's a discipline. The first thing that I would suggest doing is removing all your toolbars. That's the first step. So I never have. By the way, this, if you guys haven't noticed yet, this is my Visual Studio instance. This isn't in the VM. So I have all the toolbars hidden, and whenever I need to do something, the first step is to go ahead and just look at the menus, and in the ReSharper menu in particular, find something you want to do, and then look over to the right, and they'll tell you the shortcut. And then just force yourself to use those shortcuts over and over and over and over again.
And don't try to learn every shortcut. Don't read the manual, unless you're a freak like me. Don't go and read the hotkey list and memorize it.
I thought for a second you were about to say,
do
don't go
them,
read
do
the
them as
manual.
you use them.
What I did
Oh
with
no,
ReSharper,
read the manual, but
yeah.
I read manuals like I read novels. But you don't need to do that. But just when you come to try to do something that you do a lot, see what the hotkey is and then use it.
What I did with ReSharper is every few days I would go open up this menu. I would pick a random item, and I would get used to using it, using the shortcut. So like one day I'd pick up, okay, so I want to train myself to use go to file. So then I didn't touch the Solution Explorer for a few days and just use the Control-Shift-T, or go to symbol instead of using the, go to member. Instead of using the drop downs on the top, I would use this shortcut. Or then I got used to using the base and derived home alt end, and I just kept on going through this. And in a few months, I have pretty much all of them down. And it's just a matter of practice, really. I've used Visual Assist from the whole tomato for C++ before. Is Visual Studio likes Visual Assist, but better? Visual Studio, or ReSharper, sorry, is very similar to Visual Assist for C#, but it's very nice. I like ReSharper a lot. I mean, it has tools for navigating, so, look at symbols. I can search for files. I can jump to definitions. I can go to base symbols, deriving symbols. I can extract methods, so I can take code and automatically make a method out of it. So if I wanted to do this...
Do some equality.
Do what?
Do equality quickly.
Or I can...
This is the best thing about ReSharper.
Oh, sorry. I could have it generate all that code for me, which would make equality members work properly for this type. I can have it automatically generate for me the formatting operator, the toString method. I mean, you guys aren't expected to know that stuff yet, but I just kind of wanted to show that it does a lot of code generation for you automatically. For example, you'll notice this constructor. If I delete this constructor, I actually created this constructor with one keystroke or a few keystrokes, alt, insert, and enter, space, and enter. So ReSharper actually looked at all the properties I had on this type and created a constructor for me that set all of them. So it's a very, very nice package.
Yeah, it is.
And of course, it supports renaming symbols and renaming local variables, and yeah.
And much more.
We love ReSharper.
Yeah. Okay, so well,
Any more questions?
Come on, guys. We're here for you. Ask the questions.
Moosaroo, ask questions or we don't get to hang out with them.
So come up with some questions.
I'm sure I'll have more when I get deeper into my code. What's the best way to read variables from class to class? I'm not sure I understand that question. Could you maybe give an example of something?
I'm thinking this might touch on one of your pet peeves, which is globals.
I hope not.
Well, actually, I only mentioned it because it struck me the other day. It's one of those things that, as a beginner, it seems like a logical thing to do. I always, to me, I came to it first, and it seemed,
Yeah. Well. Oh, we did have a question. So, Ian, could you just please rephrase that? I just don't quite. I mean, we can guess, but it might be easier for you to give an example. What would you do if you have both a name and a price in the text file when there are two different types, string double, one line separate? There are a lot of ways to get text to be written to a file in a way that makes it easy. But in this case, what I would suggest is having the name of the product and then a new line and then the price of a product. And the reasoning is trying to use any sort of delineator at this point would be problematic if you aren't familiar with string processing or the cases where those delineators might be ambiguous. So just having the name of a product followed by the price of a product would be more appropriate. NATO, what's first? Is it the price or the name?
I think NATO must have the name first.
See,
Yeah.
Now, what if somebody put that symbol entered that symbol as the product name? Think about what your code would do. What you could have done instead, though, is done price followed by euro followed by name. Because the price isn't a string and there's no way for the user to enter something that would break it. So by swapping it, it would be a little bit nicer to the user if they really want to have that symbol in. Yeah, creating a CSV is fine, as long as you have the right escaping code in it so that if a person enters a comma in their product name, it doesn't destroy your parser. But NATO, does that make sense? I would do the same thing. Basically, what you would have is you would have string product line equals stuff or 23.42 money product name, and then you could say, okay, well, let's say the product name has some dollar symbols in it. Then you could say string name equals product or string parts equals product line dot split. And I know we haven't covered split yet, but if you do split comma split comma 1, I believe, or is it split comma 2? Oh, stop being stupid. Oh, right.
It's going to be an array. Yeah.
Okay, so then you'll do split comma 2, and then you would say string array parts, and then you would say string product name equals parts 0, or sorry, parts 1, and decimal product price equals decimal.parse parts 0. So by doing it this way, the name can have as many of these symbols in them as they want, but it's only going to split the first occurrence of it. We never covered parsing, so should that be allowed? If you're just using split, I mean, that's up to Gavin.
No, well, I mean, if you're familiar with string formatting, I have no problem with people using string format because it's such a thing that you have to know about.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as parsing, though, we haven't covered anything specific to parsing, but we have covered a lot of the background into, or a lot of the tools you would use to accomplish parsing.
Yeah, I'm such a walkover.
Okay, so Ian asks, like a list in main, reading and using it in load class. Okay, so at that point you have to start thinking about parameters and return types. The reason I'm really wanting to disallow the concept of static state in the homework is to force people to think about things in terms of parameters and return types. So for example, we could have a class here called product loader that has a method that returns a list of product. And of course, I'm trying to keep all the access modifiers out of this, even though I normally like them. Load products, string file name. And then this would do file reading. And then for saving it, you could have a product saver, which has a public void save products given a file name that takes in addition, a list of products to save. So products. And this would do file writing. And then in main, we could instantiate the product loader and say list of products equals loader.load products, and then say products.txt. So something like this. Is that what you were looking for as far as to how to get the variables from one class or from one object to another?
You hurt NATO's brain.
So if we were to walk through the execution of this in the debugger, what we can see is we instantiate the product loader, and then once we get to line 33, we're going to go ahead and jump into the loader.loadProducts method, which will do all the file reading, and it'll return back a fully populated list of products. Now, I don't have any of the parsing code in here at the moment, but just pretend that it's there. After this is done, execution jumps back to line 33, but if I jump to line 35, the products variable is actually going to be assigned to whatever loader.load products returned. So whatever this read out of the file, the products array or the products list here is going to be set to that. And then we can just simply turn around and instantiate a product saver and say saver.save products, and then pass in products, and then pass in products.txt, or the other way around. So at this point, now we're taking that data that we retrieved from the loader.load products, and we're threading it into the save products method.
What's the swap parameters shortcut?
I have to actually put my fingers on the keyboard.
Yeah.
Control, Alt, Shift, left and right.
Of course it is. Thank you.
Can you use a constructor? There's no way you could use a constructor for a program. See, if I were to insert a constructor here, this constructor is never going to be executed, ever. Ever. At least with this current program. We can make it execute, but the way it's set up, it's not going to execute. So if I were to set a breakpoint right here, you'll see it never runs. The reason it never runs is the program class is never actually instantiated. Now, it is an instance class. It can be instantiated, but it's never is. The main method is static, meaning that the runtime can invoke the main method without instantiating a program. Because the program class is never instantiated, the program's constructor is never invoked. If I want to make my inventory static, bad, right? I realized that everyone was probably like brain dead at that point, but I distinctly remember having like a 10-minute long rant in the video about staticness and the reasons to avoid it. If you guys are completely new to this, there's no getting it to work with static members is way better than not getting it to work at all. But if you have the time, it would be really cool to see, in addition, to remove as many static members as you can from your program, just as a further exercise. Because staticness really doesn't lend itself well to, good code in general. Having trouble with scope. I'm having trouble setting the list to work with another method, so I tried cheating. I tried to make the list global, but that wouldn't work either. Any ideas? I think that in this case, this is fairly, this is how you would do it. This is how you would pass around a list of products without having to actually revert to a global state. Now, we can even one-up this, make it even prettier. And so now what we've done is we've created an inventory object that we can pass around instead of a list of objects to make things even more, perhaps cleaner. So what we could do here is inside of our main method, instead of passing around a list of products, we can instantiate an inventory. We can say inventory equals new inventory. And we can change the signature of our loader.load products to, instead of returning a list of products, we could simply have it accept an inventory object. We can say it accepts an inventory object instead of returning a list of products. So what I did here was I made this method return void now, but it accepts in an inventory object as a parameter. So now what it can do is it can say inventory.addProduct, and it could do this as many times as it wants to. Of course, this code would actually be inside of a loop that's reading a file, but this is how you would go about actually adding a product here. The save products method would get a similar treatment. Instead of taking a list of products, we can go ahead and take an inventory. And now we can do this. We can say for each product in inventory.products, write out product to file. So now our code becomes this. So now we have this nice little object that's kind of the gatekeeper to a list of products, but it can be passed around into other methods so that those other methods can edit the inventory to their liking. So does anybody have any questions about that? I mean, I know I was kind of answering a question, but if anybody has any further questions about what I just put together, they're welcome to ask. Not, you know what I'm saying.
Well, there's a good question. When should you use static?
Yeah, I did see that.
Too deep.
No, I was going to address it, but I wanted to get Reclaimer's question in first, and then see if any questions spawned out of this question. But it seems that we are questionless right now, so... Okay, so when should you use static? Well, you can use the static construct to make a lot of code simpler to understand the first time you write the program. Problem with staticness is it is the single biggest construct in the C# language, I think, that leads to brittle code in the future, because it prevents you from reusing your classes. If you have a class with a bunch of static members on it, you've essentially said this class will only ever have one instance of it in the program, which makes it very difficult to repurpose later on when maybe you find an instance where you need two of those instances to be running at the same time. So I will generally avoid static. I'm not going to say not to use it. I'm just saying that I avoid it because I have found that in the past it makes code more brittle over time. When I do use static, it'll be generally for behavior that doesn't change, or behavior that doesn't rely on the external state of the program. So behavior like console.writeLine or read key are good examples of the use of static, because their behavior isn't affected by the global state of the program. There's no reason to have multiple instances of the console simply because its methods are entirely self-contained. So it's appropriate to make those methods static. If you were to have a method that performs a lot of computation, but only performed computation on the parameters that were passed into the method, that's a very, very important point. Because a method that relies on external state is going to be brittle, and even more brittle if it's static. But if it doesn't, if you have an algorithm that takes an input and returns output and does not require any other data outside of that input, then that's a good that's a good place to use staticness. Obviously, you're also forced to make main static, but I mean that's just how things are, and there's really no other way that it should be.
I think one situation I found myself in a number of times, sort of ending up in with static, is, and we've talked about this privately ages ago, but say your list of cars, is that still around, or did you do away with it?
Oh, I knew that. Yeah, sorry, but I have a list of products.
But you see where I'm going, like we were talking about a garage class before.
Right.
Rather than having a static list of, well, buildings, that was the one that I was having it on in my RTS thing. I had my building class had a static list of buildings in it.
Right.
But it was an instance building class.
Yeah, and then that makes code just not as flexible. Like in this code, because the list of products is not static, because this is a member of an instance class, or specifically an instance member of an instance class, we can have as many inventories as we want that are completely separate, running at the same time during our program's execution. We could be working with two discrete inventory files if we wanted to, because it's not static. And the code to make it not static is straightforward as well. All we had to do here was instantiate it, first of all, and then second of all, pass it into the things that needs to know about it. Those are the only two things that we needed to do to make this not static.
Yeah, but the product list inside of it, why isn't that static?
No, you mean this?
No, the next line down. Well, yes.
Well, this property relies on the instance field.
Yeah.
It's just a getter.
No, I mean, why isn't it a static list? There's only going to be one. You've got an inventory with one list of products in it.
But you can have multiple inventories. I'm confused.
No, not why isn't the inventory static? Why isn't the list of products static?
Oh, because in that case, if we were to instantiate multiple inventories, they would all be pointing to the same product,
Right.
product list.
Right. Is there like essentially an invisible static class
Invisible static?
behind an instanced class then? If that was public static list of products.
Well, we wouldn't be able to. We would have to do.
Well, but not as a obviously.
You'd have to do that, and then make it not read-only. If we did this and we instantiated multiple inventories, they would be pointing to the same list of products. See, with this code, we can have one inventory, then we could have inventory 2. Maybe we wanted to write code that took one inventory text file and merged in with another inventory text file. We could express this code by creating the 2 inventories and then loading the 2 inventories from different files, and then we can say inventory dot merge with inventory 2. And of course, merge with is a method that I haven't created yet, but if I did have it in here, this code would not be possible if the list inside of inventory was static, because each one of these inventories objects has their own discrete object reference to their own discrete list of products. And it makes code like this possible because now we can load in 2 inventories into memory from 2 different sources, merge them, and then save them out to a single file.
I think that's where I was getting hung up. I was thinking that if the products list was static, then it would be static with respect to its parent class, or its parent instance.
Oh no, it's static. There's only ever, if this was static, there'd only be one ever period.
Right.
Maybe in a single player game, the player class is static. Well, what if you wanted to? I mean, well, first of all, in a single player game, there's not going to be a single player class. There's going to be a bunch of different classes that represent individual pieces of behavior from that player. If the player class were static, then compositing it from multiple other classes to get the behavior you want, such as movement, camera, weapons, inventory, would be impossible or very difficult and annoying. In addition, that just does make your code more brittle because, I mean, sure, it's a single player game, but what if you wanted to make a multiplayer? Would you really want to, if you do it right, creating a multiplayer game out of a single player game should really be straightforward because you're still using the same code that used to render your player, but now you're having it controlled by a network stream as opposed to the input of the user. So using staticness really does lock your code down to not be very robust. Another from week 5 thread. Blacktear asks, may be an implicit thing, but does the homework need to support quantity of item? As in, if I had a cow to the list and then another cow, do I need to show cow's quantity of 2? No, we didn't specify quantity. Like I said, I'm pretty sure we didn't. I can check, though.
Don't think so, no.
So that was week 5. Enter product names and product prices. So there's no concept of quantity.
Well, we've come up on just over an hour now. Do you want to take a short break and see if there's any more questions, or do you?
Yeah.
For recording purposes.
Jason may have stepped away though.
Yeah.
So I
Keep
mean,
talking.
yeah, words.
No, actually, what was that, Nelson? I'm sorry. I got a phone call from Zach that I had to take to find out what was going on.
Oh, he didn't crash, did he?
No, he didn't crash. Things took a whole lot longer in Nashville than what he was expecting, so he's now on his way back.
Oh,
Are we going to go ahead and take a break?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me go ahead and pause this, and I'll be back in just a minute because I'm talking with Angela about stuff right now. So that's perfect timing. So 10 minutes. See you guys in 10 minutes. All right, we're back to recording. So first thing I want to point out, I think just about everybody's over in BuzzNet now. Being in BuzzNet is extremely important. Not being in BuzzNet will result in you being dismissed from the webinar itself. So please make sure to open up a web browser. And the address in the web browser, as Nelson is about to give a demonstration. And if you are not looking at this screen, you should be looking at this screen. That's the neat thing, is I can see if you're not looking at this screen. So Logan, make sure you look at this screen. And you will go to the address that has been entered in the browser. And then log in with your regular 3D Buzz credentials. Nice try, D-Stu. They can't see that. Otherwise, I have to assume that you are AFK. I want to see all matching names over inside BuzzNet right now. So I'm assuming AFK. Barry, that's a good call, but if they're not even seeing the screen or hearing us, then that definitely wouldn't do any good. The other thing that I would like to point out is that open office hours, this was based off of an email that Angela received a little bit earlier tonight. Open office hours is not a class. I repeat, open office hours is not a class. This is simply a bonus that we're giving you guys. This is our free time that we're making for those of you that are having a hard time with any of the material in the classes to come in and ask questions or just hang out and pick up some extra tidbits here and there. But it is not a class, because we had somebody complaining about missing tonight's class a little earlier today, and open office hours is not a class. It is extra. Doesn't cost extra. It's just something extra that we provide. So, and then the final thing, passwords. I have said this in just about every class, but I'll say it again. Passwords are found within 5 minutes of the start of the webinar on the live classes page. And right now Nelson is giving a demonstration of where you can find that. I'll get all the C++ stuff put in hopefully later tonight. And then we have the Unreal stuff that needs to be put in. And we have your guys' C# 102. And what browser is that in, Nelson? Question that came in from Barry.
This is Chrome. What you can do is you can go to the wrench tools and then create an application shortcut, which makes a Chromeless window. So as you see, I have like Chromeless windows for like all my Google services, social networking services, and 3D Buzz and so on. So this is just Chrome, but Chromeless.
Chrome, but Chromeless. That's right. So sweet. I think you are the only one left that needs to get over into BuzzNet, and then we are golden. We've got to start getting everybody into the habit of doing that, and that is extremely important. And if you're having problems with it, please post in the questions panel in the webinar, because you are in the webinar, what problems you're having so that we can help. But yeah, once again, password will be located in the live classes page for the particular class that is about to start. It's been like that for a while, and it'll continue to be like that. And again, for those of you guys that have pointed this out before, it's within 5 minutes of the webinar actual launch time, so it could be 2 minutes before we start. It just it's a matter of getting everything ready to go the last second. Joys of the internet.
Yeah, and we don't usually start the actual class until about 10 minutes after the posted time anyway, to allow people to join in.
Yes.
So generally we don't.
And we have found that it takes about 10 minutes for everybody to start. After about 10 minutes, it basically pans out to, we might see a straggler or two, but within that 5 to 10 minute time, there's a lot of people that are still coming in. Like even tonight, it was that way. So, all right. I do believe that anyone left that is not in BuzzNet is completely AFK. So we'll just close those connections here in a second. But Nelson, with that, feel free to go ahead. Wendy, I just wanted to say very, very proud of you. I'm very happy that you're here, that you're asking questions. And that's the kind of student I love and that I admire. Don't get any funny ideas now. Because that's how you learn. You ask questions. You get in there, you get your hands dirty. You do it. And I just wanted to say I'm really proud of you because you've been all over this stuff. So, all right, Nelly, let's get going. Let's see if there's anything else we can show them. Surely they're not all masters. You're welcome, Wendy.
I think this is something that it takes a while to come to realize that there is so much stuff in programming that it's more a question of you just get comfortable with the lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
And comfortable with your own ability to go, oh, okay, that's not working. I'll try it like this instead. But there never comes a point where you suddenly go, right, I no longer need these reference books. I know everything.
Yeah, because before you learn programming, I imagine it's the same with any skill. Programming is just one thing. It's one black box. And you're like, I'm going to learn programming. But then once you start learning programming, you essentially subdivide that box into a million tiny little specific boxes of things that you don't know in the context of programming. And that might seem discouraging at first, but it's really once you know what you don't know, that's the first step to figuring out things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Then it's just a question of beating your head against it and having the stamina to beat your head against it until it works.
Yeah, but it's just the stupid thing about the whole situation is the further you get into programming, the more branches that you open that you will not know. And then you'll think, okay, now I specifically don't know these 500 things. Now I feel like I've moved backwards, when in reality you moved forwards.
I do love that we can see who's actually given focus to the webinar right now. Nick, Tim, you guys are awesome. Very good, very good. Barry, Chris, because Christian, Dave, come on, guys. I know you guys are all looking at Visual Studio. I'm sure of that.
Yes, or typing in BuzzNet, which of course takes focus from.
That's right. I'm just giving people.
The thing is, I don't give anything focus. I sit here with nothing.
Of course, you don't.
Sit here. I habitually click on my desktop. You see,
I do believe that with you, Gavin. I have no problem seeing that at all. So there's nothing else you guys want to know?
We can look at my stump again.
Yeah, show them your stump.
Right, everyone type into BuzzNet what you think this is.
Yeah, what comes to mind?
No clues
from
clues. Anyone.
The moment you saw this, what did you think? Buzzicad, your last question was what browser? And he said it was Chromeless Chrome. Flaming lava, burning grass. Wait, no, Barry. Nice try. That was your last question. Get it? Last question. Will the test be
Thanks,
open
dude.
book? I guess I can back up. Open book. Will it be open? Well, I mean, I can't see what you're doing. It's going to be timed. So I'll make sure that there's not enough time to start digging through books. No, come on, Barry. It's not going to be a hard test. You guys have learned more complex stuff than what the test is going to test for. The test is going to test for the major concepts that we wanted you guys to walk away from with a 101 class.
Well, if I'm allowed to write the questions.
I'm not letting you write the question. You write the questions.
See, I was just thinking that as well.
Yeah, people are going to vomit. I mean, we had a very particular goal with 101, and as long as you can demonstrate basic knowledge of the 101 material, we're not going to ask you to take an empty slate and put together an application on it, because some people have a hard time at this point building applications from scratch. Okay, so what is that?
See, I've got burning flowers, lava, burning grass, flowers, one-eyed monsters, and a stump that has been painted red.
That's
See, I saw
who gave you
stump.
the stump thing? I would say Meta. That's no fair. She's been here listening to us.
That was NATO, and I called that the same thing. I think he's cheating. Because Nelson had called it a stump.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the
We
first
thought red flowers, so.
First attempt I've ever made at shading anything or painting anything, so with my tablet. So
If you think about it,
yeah.
it's very interesting light. I mean, there's a light source that's coming from kind of a little bit to your right at an angle, 45 degrees down, but it's super bright, but it has no fall off whatsoever. It just terminates right at the end of its
And
hotspot.
there's one on the left.
There's one on the left as well, but that one is more of like a long area light. That's just like, yeah. And then what I really love is how you do have some light that's coming from above down at an angle from the right. You can see by the fringe of light going around the outside of the stump at the top. But then if you look on the other side of it, where of course that light would be hitting and illuminating the inside, that's all dark. It actually goes down to black on the inside.
Are you glad you showed us this, Nelson?
Well, yeah,
No, that's good. It's just things for Nelson to think about. Yeah, I think it's cool that he's starting to actually, play with this stuff.
Again, remember, I haven't wielded a pen in any serious fashion since I was like 12.
All right, so let's go ahead and
My handwriting is atrocious.
answer a few more questions. NATO asks, how is the text, or how is the, how is the text completed? Is it multiple choice or text boxes? Multiple choice for sure. With all multiple choice, we're able to give you a final answer immediately. Final score, that is. And James asks, will we always be working in the console, or at some point will we progress to forms?
No, everything's always going to work in the console. We're never going to do anything that isn't a console app. We are not going to use Windows anymore.
Why can't we just go?
back to just using
Why can't we go straight from the console to DirectX?
DOS.
I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, okay, we can add some DirectX questions in the test.
Oh, that'd be great. Those would be fun.
The answer is, I mean, we definitely are going to be. What course we take after we start moving out of the console that hasn't been decided, because there's so many things you could do. I mean, you could write headless applications for services. You can write Windows applications with WinForms or WPF. You can write web applications with ASP.NET, game applications with XNA, Unity applications with, Unity. We haven't. I don't think Jason and I don't think we've talked about where we're going to go
After
after
102, no. As a matter of fact, I will be right back. Zach just got home, Nelson. So if you want to continue taking this forward with everyone and answering questions, I'll be joining you guys back in just a minute, okay?
Yeah. So, but we will definitely be progressing past it. But I want to point out that code that uses DirectX, WPF, WinForms, ASP.NET, Unity, Photon, WCF, all those platforms, and the code you will be writing for those platforms will be C#. And it'll be the same C# that you use to interact with the console. Now, obviously, it'll be a little bit more complex because you'll have to be dealing with a real-time scenario, but it's still going to be C#. I remember being, slightly frustrated with dealing with the console all the time when I was learning programming, but I'm really glad that I spent as much time in the console as I did, because it makes going into something like Unity or WPF or DirectX or whatever a lot simpler.
Well, yeah, and absolutely. And there's so much more you've got to do to get something running around on the screen, even in Unity, than there is to, even an inventory system where you've got to get into Unity GUI and you've got to all kind of roll your own. Whereas with a console, you can test out the actual functionality you're trying to test. And can you add things and take things away, and just without all the specific parts that are related to showing it graphically.
Exactly. And I find myself, I jump into the console all the time, actually, even today. And I mean that in a kind of, even at this point, and literally today, where I will jump into a console application to write code. And then I'll take that code and the ideas that I diagrammed out, because I don't really diagram things. I just kind of write code, but code that doesn't necessarily compile, but still gives me an idea about how the shape of things what shape things are going to take. And I do that inside of console applications all the time. Not only that, RuneSlinger, the first client I developed for RuneSlinger was a console application. And I used that game client, a console window, to build and test everything from logging into the system to challenging other players, to accepting challenges, to receiving chat messages. All of that logic I tested in the console application. I didn't even touch Unity. And by the time I got into Unity, I had a nice client framework all set up and just had to create some game objects, and the code was already working at that point.
I suppose it also working that way forces you into a proper MVC or whatever system, whatever model you're using, because obviously you're going to end up with a DLL rather than a, you're going to have non-specific code if you're using the console temporarily.
Yep. I mean, and that's with the Rune game. I had a bunch of view interfaces, and I know we haven't talked about interfaces yet, but I had a bunch of these types that I created that defined how to interact, or defined what things must be in existence on a particular class. That's what an interface kind of is in a high level. So I had a bunch of these view interfaces, and then I implemented those view interfaces in my console app. And then when I moved over to Unity, besides the Unity specific stuff I had to do, like set the orthographic size of the camera and all that stuff, I mean, you have to do that anyway. But as far as game logic goes, all I did was implement a bunch of interfaces and write Unity specific implementations in them. Do you know how you did the homework? Not really.
We covered pretty well how to do 5 and 6. 3 and 4 work together, and 5 and 6 are a pair of projects as well. 3 and 4 you could go over.
Well, I mean, isn't that all passed by this point? We already went over 3 and 4. That's bubble sort and hang in there, right?
3 and 4 are both hang in there.
Oh, yeah. I remember going over that already in the last open office hours we did.
Yeah, I think you did. I think we're getting ahead. I find it confusing having the same project 2 weeks in a row.
Well, you better get used to it, because you're going to have the same project every week in the row for the next course.
I am, and it's going to be called, what the hell does this do? I don't understand C++. This is going to be fun to mark.
Oh, no. I mean for C#, because they're doing the text game adventure.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at this as a chance to revise my, because I did Hyperion. That was my introduction to programming, because it was free and still is free to everyone. what led to my post about Nelson versus Hyperion, because it'll be interesting to see your approach as opposed to Logan's.
Yeah, it'll be fun to put together. Said 4 and 5, not 3 and 4. I was just wondering if you went over them. Oh, do you mean 5 and 6? Because 4 was refactoring.
Yeah,
Hang in there.
different things.
Yeah, 4
That's
was. Yeah, 4 was doing refactoring. Hang in there, and then 5 was the product inventory system. And I guess you could say I did cover it slightly in that somebody had asked how to get
Showed
the
them
line.
exactly how to do it.
Yeah, well, how to get the line count of main down to where it should be, and using enumeration specifically. And this is the solution here to that problem. I mean, obviously it's not all working code, but it should put people on the right track. So yeah.
Stuff and things.
Yeah, it is funny with the drawing stuff because that is something so completely and utterly new to me. I was thinking as I was messing around, I've been playing around with basic how to hold a pen, basic line art and stuff for the last week or so, and it kind of made me realize how I was probably making everybody here feel who are new to C#. But you just keep on. What I've been doing is I've been just telling myself what I've been telling everybody here. Just keep on throwing stuff at the screen, and eventually something good will happen. I mean that, and I've been reading, material on color theory and stuff, of course. I didn't mean 6 because I haven't done 6 yet, or at least isn't doing
What
yet.
is it? What is it you're actually having problems with, or is it not anything you're particularly having problems with, Wolf?
Okay, well, in that case, this code that was written right here is, I mean, with the exception of console write lines, product name to add, inventory. Let me look at the prompt again. Yeah, I guess I can quickly just go and show 5 really quickly.
Well, 5 and 6 are essentially the same, to be honest. I mean, it's the same product, just 6 is done better, which is what you'd probably end up doing.
Yeah. Well, what 5 is though? I mean, this is essentially 5, and this is the approach I would take to do it. Does it? Let me make sure. It needs product name and product prices. So if I were to just use 2 lists for product name and product prices, and then pass them into each of the individual methods. At that point, now I'm carrying around these 2 pieces of state, and then I would have a method that called load products that took in product names and product prices. And at the end of the main method, I would have a method called save products, which took in product names and product prices. And then by simply putting these methods together, you'll come up with pretty much the homework. So basically,
Yes, Nelson.
If you add code to remove the products and add the code to load and save the product lists, then this would be a complete Homework 5 submission.
And Barry, I'm sure Zach will be putting up pictures of his bike tonight on Facebook, but right now it's dark outside. So it kind of sucked. We didn't really get to see the bike really well. I mean, I know that bike very well because if I buy a bike, that's the one I want as well. But yeah, tomorrow I'm sure there'll be plenty of pictures he'll be posting up.
Wolf, what do you mean by lighter? Are you referring to this, or are you referring to... I'm confused.
Lighter meaning a whole lot less code?
Well, yeah, remember, though, that the save product and load product haven't been implemented.
Right.
But,
You did those in that first file.
Yeah, pretty much.
Class.
But these, like the main method, I mean, keeping indentation down, breaking things apart into methods that make sense will always make your code feel. Well, in this case, what this would look like is actually I mean, of course, you still need decimal price. We can just say while true. And then we can say if decimal try parse console read line out price. So this would be a full implementation of this. Yeah, that's fine. We didn't specify if it should be a decimal or a double. Though generally I would prefer using decimals for anything that involves money. But either one would be fine. Because they both support decimal values.
Just in terms of showing what you mean about readability and rubbing that in one more time, if you just do an Alt-MO. Do I mean Alt? No, Control-MO.
Right. Yeah, with this you have a very... like a roadmap of your application that allows you to jump to any of the specific pieces of functionality that you would want to edit.
Roadmap for completing your homework.
Well, this is for 5, which...
For anyone that needs to resubmit.
Everything you've said about, naming of methods and parameters and separation of responsibility. You can kind of look at when you outline your code like this, you can look through it and you can see exactly what you've got. This does saving it, this does loading things, this adds the things, this.
Yep.
And don't forget, for those of you that are in the Monday class, you're welcome to join us again tomorrow night as we go back over the introduction to object-oriented programming one more time. So I know for some of you that are overseas, that's late, but you're welcome to join.
Putting things like user input in non-program classes seems really alien to me. Assume it's actually not a bad idea. I'm just getting worried about nothing. Putting user input in classes that perform computations is generally a bad idea. User input should generally be handled in the most abstract way you can handle it. It should be as far away from your main program logic than it can be. But that doesn't mean that you can't create a class whose sole responsibility is to interact with the user. And in fact, that's going to be preferable because the main method should generally be relatively small. Generally be. And we just got into object-oriented programming, so there's really not many ways or many patterns I could talk about now to get the main method to be very small. But generally speaking, it's not going to be very very big.
Well, X and A is a prime example of that. And it's one thing that I did, as a beginner, I didn't notice was there for a long time, doing the X and A course. When you open up an X and A project, because it goes straight onto the game.
Yeah, you mean the main method is like application. Yeah.
That's
Same
what it does. If anyone wants to try it, just start a new, rather than starting a console application, start an X and A project, and you'll find that the program.main inside that says game 1 equals new game dot run, I think, and that's it.
Come on, questions? Open office hours.
I just don't understand how you can get love out of that.
At least you were able to finally understand why we saw it rose.
Yeah, it took a while to look at it like that because, I mean, yeah.
Are you going to post it
I guess there's a difference.
Are you going to post it on Facebook? Sign it at the bottom?
No.
What? It's
No.
your first. It's your first abstract art. You're going to have some fans.
It should be on DeviantArt.
Yeah. No.
Get Toastage to critique it.
Again, open office hours, questions. We want to, Wolf, we want to make sure we don't get into the same problem we did a couple weeks back. Only looking at code if there's problems, and we need to help solve. Just so that we don't get caught up in that same thing where we spend 2 hours just jumping from person to person's code.
Somebody did say, tell us about globals, Nelson.
Well, I
think you should explain why they're a bad thing.
Well, first of all, C# doesn't support globals. I mean, globals. The closest you can get to a global in C# is
globals.
Yeah, a static class or a static member in an instance class. And I think we did talk about that before, though, even just today, how it just makes your code so much less flexible and able to be understood. One of the biggest things that I find is when you have a class, you should be able to look at the signature of that class's constructor and the signature of that class's methods and have a feeling for what it does based off of the data it takes in. Using a static global shared state makes your class coupled to something that it doesn't take in explicitly, meaning there's no way for you to look at the signature of that class's constructor or members and instantly see or get a feel for what it does, because it could be interacting with all of these public static gross things that are not good. And the reason that's bad, like I said, for one, it makes your classes less understandable. It just does. By having the methods inside of your classes interact with static objects, you will not be able to easily follow or understand or know for certain what the responsibilities of that class is. In addition, by having shared global state, so shared global variables, shared static mutable variables that can change over time, you will run into a situation where you'll have code editing these variables, and you will undoubtedly forget. You'll have this awesome product inventory static thing, and you'll write a piece of code, and then you'll go to write another piece of code that you need to use that same shared state. Well, you forgot that it's being edited by another class, so you use it in a way that makes it incompatible with the other class. And so now when the other class goes to try to use the shared state, it blows up. Because the dependencies aren't explicit, because anybody can access and mutate those variables, you do not have any sort of gatekeeper into that data, and you do not have control over who edits that data, and it makes your program very difficult to reason about. What if you only have one class and you know you always will? Very few programs that I've written have a single class, but if all you have is a main method, if that is all you have, and maybe you have a few other methods, adding a static field to program isn't going to cause your computer to murder you. But that those sort of one-off situations those sort of one-off projects aren't the kinds of projects that I'm really wanting to ingrain in people's head in these classes. You'll have them, I do, where I'll toss a bunch of code in main, or maybe I'll toss a bunch of code in a few different methods under program. But that's really not what I want to teach. I want to teach people how to make more robust and more powerful, larger, more scaled applications than just one-offs. That's the whole point of object-oriented programming. Yeah, you could have used the static field on the week 5 homework, and that would have worked. But it's just something I would generally discourage. You're not going to fail the homework because you did. And if you got everything to work using a single static field, that's still pretty cool. But just I dislike them. They've bitten me too many times. Because they slowly will creep up on you and bite you.
Hey, I'm about to gross Angie out, so let me go ahead and mute myself real quick.
Okay. So yeah,
Success, I'm
code,
back.
words.
Just showing Angie my spider bite.
Oh yeah, how was that? Made of just asked
It's
you.
pretty horrible looking. It's healing. I'll send you a picture, Nelson.
Oh, yay.
Well, it seems we've done too good a job of teaching people things. No one has any questions.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, you're right. He can paint an abstract off of it. Maybe it'll give him some ideas. Anyone? Bueller?
He's more likely to paint an interface. Did it.
Dink.
One day I'll be able to draw. So,
And if you sort of reach a point with the homework where you sort of bang yourself against a wall and can't find a way past it, go back and do one of the first projects. Go back and do the first project again from a blank page, and you'll be amazed at how much
Easier that seems to
easier
come now.
it will be. It's very easy to find yourself always at the surfing on the wave of the edge of your knowledge, because you go, oh, now I can do this, oh, I can't quite do this, and once you can do that, you go, oh, but I can't quite do this. But then all of a sudden, you do sometimes need to step back and go, actually, I can do a chunk of stuff now.
yeah, and like you said, riding on the wave of knowledge. Is that what you said? Is that because I like that?
I was surfing on the edge on this wave of that's always right on the edge of where your knowledge is, because you will often come to these points where all of a sudden you'll fall into a big hole and go, oh, this is broken.
Right. But it's important to understand that being at that point is good. Like when you are just, you have to constantly be pushed. Always.
Yeah, and
Oh, James.
sorry, I've just got Musaru just said, and if you're finding the homework too easy, go do Knowledge Review 7 in the XNA course.
I thought that was an easy assignment.
It's gone into legend on the site.
Yeah, I know.
Just search for KR7. It's just wonderful.
What's your...
Everyone.
What is it?
I don't know about this. What's the knowledge review?
Yeah, it was
Directed acyclic graph.
Yeah.
Oh.
By Knowledge Review 7, I figured, and it was in 102. There you go, Nelson. That's just for you. Figured people should know how to do it. We had some people that actually did it.
I did it, but it was a sudden step up in difficulty.
See, Musaru did it. People were doing it.
Yeah.
Does it look better to you, Nelson?
Better? Actually, it looks worse.
Yeah, you can see how whatever it was, it definitely ate the skin pretty bad. Zach showed me a whole bunch of brown recluse pictures, and they seem to match up perfectly. So it does seem that that's what it was. It bit me. But I'm no longer feeling sick, so that's a good thing.
But still no superpowers.
No, isn't that lame?
It's just not right.
I haven't. I mean, I've tried to climb the wall a couple of times, but I feel like I'm being driven crazy and up the wall quite often. But
Yeah.
all right, in all seriousness, we did have a question from Barry asked about still no time/date for the 102 class, and I did pencil something in tentatively. I've got a whole bunch of things penciled in. I can share them with you guys. As you guys know, starting this coming Monday, C++ 101 kicks off, and that class will become a little bit more intense over time, as it's an 8-week class. It's going to be taking place over 9 weeks. There will be a 1-week downtime during that. I have a few things that I'm going to be doing. One, going up and seeing Leonard in Calgary, and another is a Canon workshop class. It'll be in May. So I've got 2 different times that I'm going to be out of town. And while Nelson will be able to handle things just fine without me, I try to keep those to a minimum as much as possible, though there's going to be a couple of times with C++. But anyway, C++ 101 kicking off Monday. We're looking at Blender 102 kicking off this coming Tuesday. So it's going to be moving from a Saturday over to a Tuesday class. And those hours, I'm waiting for him to let me know. Then right now I'm looking at UDK is probably going to end up being on Wednesdays or Thursdays. And I've got to talk to Zach about that. That was one of the big things today, was getting UDK kind of finalized and getting registration going for that, because we've got a lot of people since that webinar that have been asking about that class kicking off, and I want it to kick off soon. The C# 102 class, as I've said, Monday, we're looking at Thursdays. And I was hoping to start it just a week after this one, but at the moment it's looking like we're going to be using this next week, as you guys know, as a testing week for those that are wrapping up the class to get their certificate, that we're able to attend 50% of the classes and get all their homework turned in. So the week after that, if it starts on the 19th, then we'll have one class, and then the 26th will be a down week. Otherwise, we kick it off on the 3rd. So that'll be the Thursday after that one down week.
I'll just put my vote right in now for starting it after, and not having given that you're going to have the hiatus for a week anyway.
Yeah, the hiatus is also, there's still going to be a downtime period that's going to take place at the almost the end of May 24th. That's the week that C++ is showing a down week. It'll also be C Sharp on Thursday will be a down week as well. A vote in for Wednesday, NATO, is difficult for us. And the reason I say that is we also have another individual.
I think he was.
Oh, what was that?
I think his slide vote for Wednesday was in regards to UDK, but I could be wrong.
Ah, gotcha. Well, it very well could be Wednesday. Okay, NATO, cool. But Wednesday doesn't work well for Nelson and I because of other things that we have going on with private classes and all. And then I'm looking at Wednesday nights doing open office hours, or Wednesdays that are it's going to be kind of a 2 to 3 hour session, whatever time is needed, but we're going to roll it in for both C++ and C Sharp. And so it's kind of one of those things that, because we've got so many people that are in C Sharp that are taking the C++ class. And so, it'll just be a convenient thing for us since we're doing it as something extra that we're having to throw into our schedule. And I will say this, as I've said it before, there may be weeks that come by and we just simply have to skip doing one that week, or do it at some, really odd time. Just be aware of that. So
Yeah, and if anyone's got any spare days, they can send us to add to our weeks.
Now, what we could do is we could start it. So that would, after next week, that would give a 2-week down period, and then it would start on the 3rd. But I could still schedule, if you guys are interested, some just open office hours, even though it's downtime between 2 classes, and people can come in and we can still just kind of hammer over things that have been done, or show small examples, things that are related. People that want to just kind of stay fresh with the lecture and with their coding skills if they're new. We can still do that, and it doesn't have to be official class time.
Well, and particularly with the more conceptual things that, like we've been talking about tonight, they tend to be more sort of amorphous questions that apply to wider situations than specifically homeworks and things.
Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is I'm open to start it whenever, but Zach and I are going to be up with Leonard in Calgary on the 26th. So if we start it the week after next, if we start it on the 19th, that'll be 1 week with Nelson and all, and then the next week. I mean, Nelson, if you wanted to run it on the 26th, I mean, you know these guys all pretty well, so.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be done. Yeah, we could do that. I'm down with that. You down with that, Nelson?
Yeah, I'm down with that.
And Nelson's panicking. Nah, Nelson's not panicking. He's got this stuff. Gavin will be with him, but I won't have Zach able to be with you though, because Zach will be with me for that trip. What's going to be awesome, Nelson, is when we do one of these classes when I'm up there with you.
Actually, I need more desk.
You need more cowbell. I don't need desk. I can just sit by you. I don't have to type.
Oh yeah, that's true. I need more microphone.
Just slide one of the
You need
plus-nets over.
an electric fence around your mouse.
Yes.
No, I'll just bring my balance and my my Apple Mac with me,
Alrighty.
and that'll work perfect.
When are you guys showing up? Better get her.
Not yet. We're waiting on her passport to come in, and we talked about it today, believe it or not. We were looking at end of May, early June.
Cool.
But I still want to go to Victoria, so we got to make sure that our time works out well for that.
It showed the ferries are open, and there's a ferry that leaves. The 2 hours you'll be in Sydney. Then it's a 30-minute drive from Sydney to Victoria. So
Yeah, and see, that's going to be just downright awesome. And Meta's never been out of the country before. And let's see, Dave asked, there's a couple questions that have come in. Sorry about that. Wolf is worried about the C# test. No worrying. Dave typed in, blah, 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 hard for me to type. Okay. He came back and said, Jason, how did the C# class meet your expectations? Good turnout? I'm happy with the turnout, to be honest with you. We have more people that have been showing up for the C# open office hours than we have for the Blender class. It's kind of a little surprising because, for the most part, we've kept things really simple through C#. I know things got a little challenging at the end, but we're just getting you guys ready for 102, which is going to be much more interesting. But I was very, very pleased with it, Dave. Did it help member sponsorship? C# class, a little. C++ and UDK, yeah, that's been an unexpected explosion of people very much interested in attending those classes. So that's very exciting, and also there's people that decided that the live classes weren't for them, so which is good because our numbers kind of balanced out to where our class wasn't unmanageable. And if you've noticed, the last few classes that we've had, they've managed to hit between the 2 and 3 hour mark for the most part, and that's really cool as well. And Wolf asks, let's see, how should we go about studying for the test?
Read the C# language specification.
I was about to say exactly that.
Let's see, Wolf, a class in terms of the C# programming language is A, a party where a bunch of people get together to watch a movie. B, something we call a furry animal. C, a template for defining a particular blah, blah, blah. Or D, groceries that you can find at the store. I mean, which one would you guess?
This isn't so much an exam as a daytime TV win trip to Magaluf quiz.
Bazakad, yes, this is a class, but that's why I specifically said in terms of the C# programming language. Because I knew somebody like you would come in and say that. And Wolf, yeah, I was asked earlier if it was going to be multiple choice by NATO, and it's that's kind of the plan. Look at that. Tim's homework just got turned in. Actually, it just got added to the Dropbox. But, yeah, multiple choices. What I like about multiple choice is that we're able to give everybody answers immediately. I mean, the answers as in if they miss something, and we can also give them their score immediately as well. And if you fail, you can come back the next night and take the test again. Wolf, I always take a long time on tests. Are you still thinking about the multiple choice question I just gave you a second ago? Answer that. C, whatever. Yeah, C is the right answer. So that didn't take long. Remember, I'm looking for basic 101 knowledge. We pushed things, and we always will, above and beyond 101 with the 101 skill set that you guys have been picking up. And some of the things have seemed more advanced because I know a lot of you that are in this class, almost every single person has got experience working with programming languages, and most of you have experience working with C#. So yeah, some of the stuff that we've talked about is kind of, slipped outside the reins of 101, but I'm only going to be looking for 101 knowledge. So I don't anticipate anyone having any trouble. So for anyone who's worried that they're going to miss out on sleep, don't. There's no reason to lose sleep over what's coming. There's not going to be any, So how do you define a singleton pattern? Give us an example. Here's a text box.
That's too easy.
That is too easy. It's a 101 class. Come on.
Implement the Y Combinator.
That won't be in 101, 102, 103. Make a maybe monad and make sure to explain in depth exactly what's happening and extend on the maybe monad functionality to support ...
You make a multi-state hotkey system.
Oh, well, if you think you can do that, then see, you're and I'm comfortable you are, you're way ahead of 102 knowledge. But, ooh, now that I have your attention, I don't ever want to hear you, again, say that this class is too fast, I can't keep up, I'll just watch the video later. And that goes for everybody. If something's going too fast and you can't keep up, watch. Take notes. If it's too fast to take notes, just watch. Because later when you go back through it again and you pause and you're following, it will mean so much more. I promise you, I've been teaching for so many years, I know what I'm talking about. Now, no, don't say sorry, just put a giant smiley in there, Wolf.
From a personal perspective,
That's better.
I do like. I find myself giving more time to people who have problems with their stuff if I know that they haven't been sat BSing in the chat throughout the classes.
Yeah, because you're watching at BuzzNet and they're goofing off the entire time. Then after it's over with,
yeah, and then they PM going, I don't know, this isn't working. I don't know how to do this, and they tend to get a PM back from me saying,
didn't I see you passing notes during class? I mean, more or less. That's funny, but true. Yeah, James, you've been busted. No, this is gonna get interesting because some of the things that Nelson and I have talked about when we get up to a 200 series class, it's going to be fun. I mean, the class is going to be fun. The 102 class, I gave you guys a sneak peek at the syllabus. It's posted over on 3D Buzz if you haven't seen it yet. It's going to be pretty fun.
I'm so stoked about this. I think I've said to you many years ago, but my favourite ever thing that I did with 3D Buzz was the Hyperion, because that's where I live. Adventure games.
Yeah, they're great. But this time, it's not going to be just Hyperion. Did you not see everything that we're covering in that class?
Yeah, I did. This is what
it's going to be epic.
Nelson's take on how to do this is always going to be cool.
And there's going to be design discussions, which is outstanding. So we're going to start getting some design principles in early. I'm excited about it. I mean, I'm really excited about it.
Well, I'm wondering how straightforward it would be to do an offshoot course tied in with Unity as a display, as the view for the 102 text.
Oh, that'd be easy.
Just to plant an idea in your head.
That'd be easy. Can't believe I have a bumblebee laying on my desk right now. Let me see if he's...
You have all sorts of weird insects and
I do.
things on your desk.
Let me see if he's moving. No, I think he's finally passed to the other side. For those of you that came in late and you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about, my daughter brought this to me and said, I thought you might want to take a picture of this. But then after she handed it to me and I was holding him, she pointed out that he was not all the way dead and his legs were still slowly moving.
That's sad.
I know. No,
This isn't how the whole thing with the spider started.
No. I was taking pictures.
I didn't bring you a spider. That wasn't.
No, I had my son's girlfriend volunteered to do some modeling out at the park. And I did a few shots where I was laying on the ground to get, some interesting camera angles. And right now, bugs are kind of going crazy. Like, you know what a tick is, don't you, Gavin?
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, you saw that picture I posted with the cute little turtle. When we went to the park yesterday morning, it was really early, and I made the mistake of walking out into the woods and snapping a couple shots over there before getting back onto the trail. And it was just a matter of out and back in only maybe 3 minutes top. And then got back, there were several climbing on me. They hadn't had a chance to, start burying the old head, but still it's enough to be like, ugh, no going back into the woods. Not without some serious bug spray on me. But I think it when I was at the park because it was after we got back from the park the weekend before last that, it felt kind of painful in my stomach and it was starting to itch. And it was just a red spot at the time. And now it's turned into an area the size of the dime where all the skin's died and eaten down and nasty scabs grown over it. Yeah, it looks pretty sexy, doesn't it, Nelson? Come on.
I think we seem to have run out of
I think so, and right now we're just talking. I have not seen a single question come in. Well, let me make sure. Will the test be timed? Wolf asked that. I did answer that before. Yes, it's going to be timed. Let's see.
That's it.
As for studying for the test, you probably already know. You can probably already ace it. And
best thing I would say, go back and look at the syllabus for this course. That we gave out ahead of time.
yeah,
And just look through it and see if there's anything on there that you're not confident you.
and I can tell you now,
about.
we're not going to be drilling a whole bunch of object-oriented questions. We're not going to be getting into what is polymorphism. It's just that'll make much more sense when we get into class number 2. It was just touched on with the discussion the other night. It'll be touched on again tomorrow night. And if you don't even remember what it is, that's okay. But do I expect you to know at least the basics? If you had to describe to somebody what a class is, yes. Can you tell somebody what a variable is? Do you know what a while loop is? These types of things are important. Basic 101 stuff. All right. I can't believe you guys are still sitting. I mean, we still have pretty much everybody that's just sitting there. And I'm just like rambling.
Ramble.
Yeah, ramble. With that,
It's because we haven't had a radio show for a while.
I guess so. Everybody's kind of using this as a quick radio show.
Yeah. Well, someone can teach me how to draw.
Revelous! Or Zach.
Yeah, he'll teach you how to draw 2 things. A left
God.
one and a right one.
Man, did you see what Revelous posted on his new model he just painted?
Yeah, it was
Holy
great.
cow, it was amazing.
And I don't think spray paint's cheating for base coats. It's just plain sense.
That just looked spectacular. It's a really good job. All right, guys. Well, again, as a quick reminder, this was what's called open office hours. It's just us making our time available for you guys to come in and ask questions and us to help kind of solidify some of the stuff you may have heard in class but you just didn't fully understand. I hope tonight was a big help to those of you that were struggling with some of the concepts. And again, if you get yourself stuck, feel free to shoot a question off to Gavin, a PM, or to Nelson, or even myself. Just be forewarned, I get a bunch of PMs and I'm not very fast at responding to them, as I have a lot of other things going on as well. But we're going to help you every way we can. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap things up. And for those of you that are going to be joining us back tomorrow night, we'll see you then. Nelson, did you have one more thing to say?
No. Was I supposed to?
No, you just took a deep breath.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. I was just making sure. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you tomorrow night. Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.